Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. As you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today, and we just got a little sneak peek there. CJ just walking around the island. I don't really want to talk about Encanto again for a whole nother episode. That's probably like a little bit excessive, but I'm going to talk a little bit about things which are like tangentially related to Encanto. Not going to be spoiling anything. The only thing I'll probably be spoiling is songs, because I'm going to be honest, songs are now stuck in my head. And part of that may be due to the fact that I was listening to, the Spotify playlist of the Encanto songs on repeat for like all of yesterday. But they're good songs, Brent. They're very fun, they're very catchy. Hello everyone, right now in Fawnhallow, it's 3:43pm on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. We know, of course, that CJ is visiting. We don't have a swap campsite, so we'll go about our usual business. All the songs were composed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, right, who I don't really know much about. He wrote like Hamilton. I assume he's done more musicals or things like that. I don't really know much about him, nor have I don't think listened to any of his previous works. So this is my sort of first experience of it, and honestly, it was kind of refreshing, I suppose, being able to hear songs which didn't sound very Disney. Like Surface Pressure, which is the one which you've probably heard of if you haven't. Either that or we didn't talk about Bruno. Probably the two songs that you've heard of if you haven't actually watched Encanto, but the songs, just like Frozen and Let It Go. And Disney, they're always basically, since the overwhelming success of Let It Go, basically every single movie since then they've tried to release a song and then push one of the songs as a sort of Let It Go for that movie. Like Moana, it was How Far I'll Go. I haven't actually seen Moana, and I for some reason sang it like a Fallout Boy song, and not Fallout Boy, but whatever. Avenged Sevenfold. No, but what was I saying? I forgot. Yeah, each of these movies has like a defining song, which is meant to be the one which is like pushed, being like, hey yo, this is it, this is real, this is me. And for Encanto, strangely, they have like two songs they're pushing. I suppose this is kind of a thing what they were doing with the impression I got from Frozen 2 is that they were basically, so many other songs were trying to be the sort of like Let It Go song, the hit song that to like follow on. Well, not so many songs, but they're all trying to be like obviously very extravagant and really great. But it's sort of to Frozen 2's detriment, is a lot of the songs, in my opinion, ended up feeling like they didn't really flow with the movie. They were just like good, like musical-esque, like songs in their own right, but didn't really like. I suppose it's more to do with a weakness of the plot in Frozen 2 or whatever. They kind of felt like songs in their own right, and then the rest of the movie was just like stringing them together somehow, which is very sort of classic musical-esque sort of way. But I feel like musicals tend to have quite a... So it's Rosetta Stone, we got Angry Mona Lisa, we'll get the fake Rosetta Stone, I suppose. Musicals tend to, be contextually around the story they're talking about in the first place, I suppose, which is, kind of a little bit different. But anyway, I'm pretty sure we have a legitimate Rosetta Stone, so we don't really need to worry about that all too much. No, the thing I was talking about was... I don't remember. Oh, we have so many things. What do we need to put in storage? Hold on. We need to sell some things, apparently. I guess we could put some clumps of weed away. Construction, scaffolding, shio ramen. And the other stuff is fine. And it's fine, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine. What was I talking about? I forgot. Yeah, so in Frozen 2, of course, they pushed Into the Unknown being Let It Go, and that seems to be what won out as being the Let It Go song. And spoilers for Frozen 2, there's a song later on in the movie called Show Yourself, which I thought was actually, when I watched it, the movie at the time, was what they were going to push as the Let It Go sort of song, because that felt more like a sort of climactic, really grand over, hugely climactic sort of song in the movie, which I thought would be the sort of Let It Go sort of grandioseness that they're trying to go for, but they didn't. But anyway, it's interesting in Encanto, they're pushing both. We don't talk about Bruno, which I assume is meant to be the sort of the big song they push, because that's kind of one which features not literally everyone in the show, but most people in the show sing with it. Sing in it. I think maybe no, Louisa doesn't. So that seems to be like the sort of titular song, but also like Surface Pressure's one, which seems to be pushed quite heavily as well. But the fact that it strangely has the actual music video for it released. That one we didn't talk about, Bruno. I think another song. I think the Madrigal's Family Madrigal song was also released with a music video, I suppose, on Disney Viva or whatever. And then from a much more business perspective, I'm sort of just like looking and being like, oh, I wonder. It's interesting what they're pushing as sort of like the titular track, the one that represents, the face of a movie. because I do think We Don't Talk About Bruno is a much better one, because I suppose that even just watching it as without like you knowing the movie, it sort of sets Bruno as seemingly some sort of mysterious evil character or whatever, which is kind of what we're going for. Surface Pressure is just sort of like it's weird because Surface Pressure to me just sounds like a good song in its own right, like regardless of the movie context surrounding it, which is similar to how Frozen 2, except for with Frozen 2 I feel like no, not Frozen 2, but the fact that Surface Pressure is such a different sounding song. Apparently it's like, I can't remember what genre it is. It's a genre I looked at and be like, oh, that's like, certainly not something I'd expect from Disney. I forget what it's classified as. I'm not that savvy when it comes to musical genres, so I'm like, not going to be able to classify it particularly well. I feel like it was reggaeton, but I'm not really sure. I don't really know what that means. But, yeah, like, when you listen to it in the movie, you're just like, whoa, this song is so different compared to, like, a Disney song. It feels different. And I suppose that is, the Lin-Manuel Miranda influence with it. I mean, there's so many, like, raps, I suppose, which sort of, like, kind of hybrid-esque rap things, which go on during the Disney songs as well, which give it a different flavour. And, of course, We Don't Talk About Bruno, the whole four-part harmony and chorus overlapping voices at the end, which really just made me go, whoa, in the movie theatre. Well, as big a whoa as I usually do, which is more like, whoa. It was shocking, to say the very least. I was like, whoa, this is cool. Yeah. What else do I want to say about that? I don't know. But Surface Pressure is incredibly catchy. Despite the fact that We Don't Talk About Bruno is probably my favourite song for that movie, Surface Pressure has been stuck in my head all day. And obviously it's got, strong themes, and I suppose that's probably why it stands much better as a solo song, whereas Frozen 2, like Into the Unknown, is very much tied up within the context of a story. It's not that Surface Pressure isn't tied within the context of a story, but it's a much more generalised sort of song about a specific concept rather than Into the Unknown, which feels very tied up with Elsa's own personal story, which is fine in its own right, but it just means it's not the sort of thing I would sing all the time on my own. But Surface Pressure, it's there all the time. It's in my head. I mean, like, I didn't mean like surface pressure, like literal pressure is there all the time. It might be for you. I'm not really particularly here to say whether it is or not. Oh, interesting. That's a different whatchamacallit, letter background, which I don't think we've seen before. At least I don't recognise it. If you wonder why we're not getting gyroids, it's because we got all of them. But Surface Pressure, it's very catchy. You should definitely go listen to it. I think either that or We Don't Talk About Bruno, or just go watch the Encanto movie as well. I'm not sponsored by Disney, but if I were, even if I weren't, no wait, even if I were and I wasn't, no wait, hold on. Even though I'm not, but if I were, I would plug Encanto anyway. Is what I mean to say. So that's a very confusing sentence. But no, just the part the Surface Pressure where it's like builds up all the tension. It's like, what breaks a camel's back? What breaks a camel's back is, and when it goes to pressure like a drip, 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 and it never stops. Just all of the pressure, just like that sudden release, I suppose, and you're mirroring the effect of a song. I suppose it's ironic saying there's a pressure which never stops, but it does stop at that point. Like all the pressure just eases up. It's a very like empty instrumental, just the drums, I think, at a moment. And also, apparently, that song's a very good song for alto singers, or like much lower mezzo-soprano singers or whatever. Disney, they love crazy high notes. I don't know why I said it so dismissively like that, but you know what I mean. Like all these like very popular songs, the people love the high notes. We love the high notes. We love the ad-libs and all those sort of things, which really just sort of are not in a lot of people's range. And thus it's rather secular, which let's not sing that. Let's not sell that. Who can actually sing those songs in the end? And I suppose it's beneficial to me because I have a somewhat higher voice, I suppose, compared to the average. Maybe I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what my voice counts as, but still, it's got like. Basically, I don't know. I've never really found the scenarios where I'm singing songs. I'm like, oh, this song's not like awkward out of my range until it gets into the much higher parts, I suppose. And songs have slowly been getting higher and higher and higher. And even then, if that happens, I just sing it down the octave. I literally don't know what my vocal range is. I think it's C3 to. I don't know like when you count the top because I can go a lot higher, obviously, in falsetto than I can in like my chest or head voice or whatever. But I'm also not a trained singer, so really maybe it's not really my place to speak on these sort of things. But yeah, anyway, Surface Pressure is just quite a comfortable song to sing. Under the surface. Wait, I forget how it goes. I feel berserk as a tightrope walker in a free-ring circus. But then it gets too high and later it's pressure like a drip, 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 and it'll never stop. No, pressure like a tip, tip, tip. You just go pop. Hang on, no, I can't really remember. Anyway, that's not really what I want to talk about today. I was actually thinking about what I wanted to talk about today. The thing I want to talk about, which I didn't actually bring up yesterday, is the fact that if you don't know, in all the Disney movies, they basically focus on like a different aspect of animation, or like not areas, only the animation or the visual part of the team studios in the Disney focus on a different part of a thing to focus on in every Disney movie to really sort of flex and see if they can create mechanisms and systems for it to actually really work. So like for example in Tangled they really focused on hair, I think, and hair physics and that sort of thing, which is why, you know, I mean, fittingly it's a story all about Rapunzel, who hair is the entire thing. And Moana, they focused on water physics and like water graphics and fidelity and that sort of thing, which is, you know, again, obviously it's always tied up in the story of exactly what they're focusing on. So in Moana they focused on, you know, the water, and, you know, her whole story is about water. I forget other things. I think Brave they focused on hair again, but like curly hair and that sort of physics. I'm trying to think what else they focused on. I think one of the Monsters University, it was about fur. In Frozen it was about snow, and there's a nice video about it. There's like snow physics engine which can simulate snow. It can simulate snows of different levels of compactness and like fluffiness and powderiness and density, etc., which is also very cool, I suppose, to watch, because I'm just like, oh, you know, that sounds really interesting in my particular mind. I wonder how they do that. And obviously the answer is just a load of maths and simulations and a load of calculations, a load of linear algebra, I suppose, essentially, which allows for all these very efficient computations. And it was a thing that they did sort of like double feature on in Encanto. Not Encanto, sorry, but in the cinema release of Encanto, because they also had a little short beforehand of for Encanto called Far From the Tree, which is pretty cute. If you have Disney Plus, go and watch it. Or, you know, if Encanto's still in the cinemas near you, you can go watch it, and it's a little Disney short preview which I had beforehand. And I always find Disney shorts a lot more fun, because I always assume that in Disney shorts they can do a lot more experimentation and a lot more wildness with the story, because it's not really the main focus on or featurette. It doesn't need to apply to the vast like majority of the audience, and it doesn't need to be, I assume, focus grouped as much, as thus they can experiment more. But it's in Far From the Tree and some of the previous Disney shorts. I can't remember which one. There's one that they made like a Postman Netflix, or maybe it wasn't Disney, I can't remember. Maybe Klaus, I think. And I also think for Paper Man, is that what it's called, that short, of a Disney short? They used this system, as I learned. It's called Meander, I think. Meander something. Maybe it says Meander or whatever, which basically allows them to sort of animate in 2D but give like a 3D paint or effects over the top of it. Or I think it also does it the other way around. I'm not really sure how it's done, because they talked about it in the movie Klaus, that they used it in. If I might have read it wrong, so maybe these are two different things. But in Klaus is actually entirely 2D animated, despite the fact it looks really 3D animated. Or okay, not entirely 2D animated. It's actually a blend. But most of it, like the characters and that sort of things, are 2D animated with like filters, with this very smart sort of like lighting system, which lights things up as if they were 3D, which is why it's got that 3D effect, which is honestly shocking when I saw the clips. But they also have like 3D things in there, like a lot of sturdy like scenery objects, things like tables, things like cards. Those are all 3D modeled as well, and they sort of like blend seamlessly together with the usage of the sort of 3D filter that we've got going on, and the 2D. Oh, we forgot to talk to Blathers again, and the 2D. You're right there, Tank. And the 2D sort of initial thing they have. I tried to look up more about Far From Tree and how it was animated, because I was watching it. I saw. I was very confused while I was watching it, because I was like, it's obviously very a 2D sort of style. You know, it looks like a traditional sort of like 2D Disney animation, but like the way things animated, I was like, is this a 3D animation which I painted over to look 2D? Not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way. I think that's completely fine. It's awesome. Animation in any form is very cool. But I kept looking at it, especially like the way the younger raccoon like turns her head to look at things. I was like, that looks like a 3D model turning, which either is this person, whoever like drew the 2D stuff is so amazingly good at drawing in 2D that they can make it look 3D and give it such an amazing sense of depth. I was losing my mind. I was like, that is amazing. How do you do that? But it seems like behind the scenes what we actually did was a sort of blend. I think we had a 3D model and painted over it with 2D. And the meander system that they used allowed them basically to draw line art onto their models. So basically, so they can animate the entire thing in 3D, which I understand is probably easier in certain aspects. At least it's easier in the, oh, that's what I'm looking for, fish. Easier in the aspect that you can render things on different perspectives a lot easier. I don't actually know if that's true, so don't quote me on that. We have a lot of duplicate fish, which we don't need, so I guess we'll sell these things. I was just looking if there was any other duplicates, but there doesn't seem to be. Which was really cool. And that's what it looks like. It looks like behind the scenes. The small snippets that they showed of it, it looked like a 3D rendered thing, but just like with a 2D sort of like, not filter per se, but I guess that's basically the layman way of putting it is a filter. I have no idea how that works, to be honest. I guess it would take into account where the camera was in relation to the model, and then like it would work out where the borders were, and then draw like a liner, quote quote, on top of it. And I'm glad to know I wasn't completely losing my mind. That is some sort of hybrid animation, because a lot of the articles were talking about how it was just 2D animated, and I was like, I'm losing my mind. How is this 2D animated? It's amazing, because it's the way if you look, 3D animation and 2D animations have very distinctive sort of ways they look, and it's not really the fault of the animators. It's just how it is, I suppose, because in 2D animations you do a lot of like different shortcuts and cheats about to do things. It's not you do that in 3D as well, I suppose, but 3D you had an actual model to work with, while 2D you had to sort of build it from scratch every time, unless you're working with like a 2D rig. But then again, that's, you know, evident in its own right. I think I'm also not an expert in animation, so don't quote me on any of this. But it was just incredible. I thought I didn't know what to think. I know that story-wise, Far From Tree is a very, you know, touching story, I suppose, about sort of like unlearning abusive habits and things which you learned from older generations. Again, it sort of ties into the theme of Encanto and exactly what's going on. Are these both fake? Maybe the beautiful statue's fake, I don't know. While painting right heart, okay, so this one's fake and it needs to be a different colour. We might even have right half painting, and I honestly can't recall, but let's let us donate beautiful statue. What happens if we just donate the other one? This must be fake. Okay, these are both fake. I think these are both. Why are we allowed to donate works of art we already have? Isn't that kind of weird? I don't want to have a quick. Oh, you know what? I got my notepad open. I can see which part of a wild painting we're missing. We're missing the left half. So the left half needs to be white. Okay, noted. If only crazy red would bring them. How many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, let's go hit some rocks, I suppose. We're still farming up our missions. I still haven't gotten to what I wanted to actually talk about today. So, yeah, that was just a cool thing I saw in Far From a Tree. Just a sort of blend of animations that they're using. Honestly, I think that's kind of... I personally like it. I know a lot of people tend to be quite snooty about the whole 2D, 3D animation thing, and, you know, 2D is superior. I think 2D is good in its own right, and I think 3D is good in its own right. So they have their strengths and weaknesses, so really the best sort of outcome you get is a hybrid between the both. And the fact that studios are very much working quite hard, I suppose, to get 3D animation looking like 2D, and I suppose in some ways also getting 2D animation to look like 3D animation, to sort of have a freedom to pick and choose and get very sort of different effects they want. Because, you know, Arcane is... hybrid, I believe it's all 3D modelled, but it's got 2D sort of like painting and filtering effects over the top of it, which give it that sort of like painted feel. So it kind of looks like it's animated, 2D wise, and painted, and like every scene is painted, which obviously is not something that you would do in animation, because that would take ages, which is why it's kind of reserved for backgrounds, I think, a lot of time. Or maybe not, I don't know, maybe someone's done like a full painting animation out there, which is insane. Raymond is probably a crafter, unless it's Vivian. One of those two. But anyway, the thing I wanted to talk about today, the focus of Encanto, in Disney movie, like the animation thing they focus on, I don't actually know for certain what it is, but I imagine it must be cloth. And cloth, physics and that sort of thing. Because cloth, I think, it must be something which is sort of like quite a difficult thing to simulate, and especially in 3D, it's very prone to sort of getting like clipping and sort of like weird, wacky, like effects and animations were just like full of bugs and glitches, while it just completely freaks out and that sort of thing. But seeing such smooth animation, because you can see it immediately if you go watch the song Family Mirabelle. Like, you can see it very early on, you know, and it was basically the first thing I immediately noticed was as she Mirabelle runs around in a dress, and the first thing I thought was, wow, that dress looks beautifully animated. And then of course I assume, I don't actually know for certain, but I assume in Colombia, like, a dancing using a dress to like sort of wave around is quite a prominent dance form, and I don't really know what it's called. Like, the only dance that I can think which particularly incorporates a lot of like dress wrapping would be like the can, which is obviously like French, not Colombian, but still, I'm not like well versed in Colombian dancing, but I was saying a lot of dancing in Encanto, which also looked very smooth. But you know, that's just the sort of thing. Like, I feel like whenever animations have dancing, unless it's like obviously these big budget studio movies, it doesn't look all that great. Which is why it's so surprising, I suppose, when Riot managed to pull it off so well. I think with KDA. But anyway, that's not really the point. That's neither here nor there. Mirabelle's dress looks fantastic. It's so long and flowy. It looks incredible. The fixes around it. It looks like an actual dress. I can't imagine how difficult it must have been to model that entire thing. I wonder how I did it. I wonder how much of a simulating, how many like reference videos they must have taken, like with someone in the dress trying to do exactly the same dance to get it look and flow exactly the same way. So obviously it's not like a big surprise. Oh, Disney, turns out their animators are like an artistic team, their Imagineers and etc., all pretty good. You know, Disney as an art business, I suppose, artistry is very, very impressive, revolutionary, one might say. So obviously it's nice to see how the cloth will be incorporated in the cloth physics, I suppose, will be incorporated in future Disney movies, because you can. Another thing I noticed was the hair looks really good. I haven't actually seen Brave, so I didn't know like how awesome the hair looked. I have seen Tangled, but I was like, oh, this curly hair has like got a nice like sort of bounce, but like a restrained bounce rather than sort of like flopping all over the place. It's got like that little like that sort of like tension and coil in the hair, which I assume curly hair has. I don't actually have curly hair, so perhaps it's not really my place to say, but I was impressed, I suppose, is certainly how I'll put it. Yeah, and also the textures that we managed to render on the movies, like, it's always crazy, because when you're younger, when you first see some, like, whatever at the time is, like, the most breathtaking revolution, I suppose, in technology and animation. You play a game and you're like, wow, these graphics look phenomenal. They look almost real. Like, I've had my own experiences of it. You might have had your own as well, because when I remember Heavy Rain, the David Cage game, or Quantic Dream game, I suppose, you know, David Cage being kind of like a character right now, was released, I was like, whoa, this game looks lifelike. And then, you know, Beyond Two Souls came out, and I was like, whoa, this game looks lifelike. And it basically keeps repeating out with every sort of like new game which comes out. Detroit also, I was like, whoa, this looks amazingly lifelike. But, you know, I've been through that old song and dance multiple times now, so I'm just like, well, in the future, you know, they're gonna come out with something even more breathtakingly beautiful, and I'm gonna be like, whoa, that looks even more lifelike now. And even nowadays, when you go back and look at the things which you originally thought were so lifelike, you're like, how did I think this looked like anything like real life? This looks terrible. Like, you go back and look like at Heavy Rain now, and I'm like, what? This looks like a PlayStation 2 game. It didn't actually. It probably looks more like a PlayStation 3 game, but still, it's not really the point. We just took down a tree, of course. But the thing with Encanto, obviously I don't look at Encanto and be like, wow, this looks lifelike, because, you know, people don't really look like that in that sort of sense. It's a very stylized sort of cartoon. But the thing I was impressed most was by Mirabelle's clothing. You know, you can see like individual stitches. You can see the small threads of hair, not the threads, but like the loose fluffs that come off of threads from the embroidery on the dress, and you can see which ones look like machine stitched on like a on part of the dress, and which ones she definitely like hand embroidered on, and the sort of like messiness which comes with them. I'm like, whoa, this is incredible. How do they do that? And there's other small like details in the animation which, or the rendering, I suppose, which is incredible. You can actually see this one for yourself if you go look at Surface Pressure at the beginning, where Louisa sings the part where sings a line, and I glow, cause I know what my worth is. You can see literally the hairs on the back of her neck. I can't remember if there's like really small like white hairs, which, you know, are very light, and, you know, most people don't notice, but those sort of hairs which light up in the light and are very pale, very thin. They rendered somehow all of those individual hairs, and I'm just like, what? That's incredible. How did you do that? Like, I can't even imagine how long each individual frame of animation must have taken to render. Obviously, you know, these big animation companies have just, like, incredible amounts of, like, server farms or whatever, just, like, render farms just to render out, churn these out. Otherwise, you know, they wouldn't do them in time. And I was also thinking about it because I was looking at, like, a list of movies that were released in 2021 because one of my friends asked me what was a favourite movie I watched in 2021, and I don't really watch many movies. The answer, by the way, is probably Shang-Chi, because, you know, remembering I watched Encanto in 2022, and I didn't really watch many movies in 2021. I watched Dune, I watched Shang-Chi, and I watched something else, but I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. But I was just, like, looking at a list of movies that came out in 2021, and then, like, one of the things that Google does is it sorts it by category, and I looked at, like, kids movies, which is obviously just, like, animated movies a lot of the time. And I looked at, like, the lowest, the ones that I was like, I never even heard of these. And, like, one of them was, like, called Pandas vs. Aliens. And you look at it and you watch it, and there's no, like, disrespect to the animators, because you got to start somewhere. And obviously they don't have a huge budget or whatever, but you kind of, like, watch it and you're like, wow. And then, like, obviously this doesn't compare to Disney or, like, any other big companies or things like that, but it's sort of like, whoa. I wonder how big the gap is between, like, animation between, like, the bigger companies and the smaller companies now. Because now it feels like it's unfeasible. You need so much, like, technology to get even, like, close to the level that Disney's got right now. But even in small indie companies, like what they got, they can only do much more rudimentary animations because there's such a large scale sort of thing that they got going on in the first place, right? I don't actually know if that's true or not. Seems like we did give CJ a thing. We're looking around for some bugs, just so we can catch them. Yeah, because Disney is now on the level, like, rendering with sort of, like, fuzzy hair, which is on everyone's bodies. That's crazy. It's astonishing. Yeah, I wonder if they did other animation things as well as, like, a focus, because of course Camilo, one of the characters in the movie, this isn't really a spoiler, is like he can shapeshift into other people, essentially. And I went, like, frame by frame on some of, like, the videos of, like, how they animated it, and it's like, there's no, like, gradual, like, shift from one thing into another. I wonder if that's something that we'll be doing in the future, though. Technology will be out shifting between, well, warping models much more smoothly, because what they actually do is they sort of, like, for example, when he switches from Dolores into himself, like, the like frill around Dolores' neck sort of, like, stretches out, and then, like, at one point it just, like, immediately switches to the Camilo model. And a lot of it's disguised with very small smooth animation and nice sort of, like, not really tweens, but, like, that sort of transition effects between them. Also, there are no bugs on this island, it turns out. Quite difficult to catch any 5 bugs if none exist. Ooh, bug. So yeah, I wonder what other things in the future that Disney's gonna try and do to be, like, a focus on the animation things, because I do continue to be impressed every single time. Like, and even when I first watched Frozen, despite the fact I was like, the Frozen songs are good and the story's just kind of meh, but I was incredibly impressed. I was like, man, the snow looks really good. It's like, I've never seen snow look so good in a movie before. And, you know, it's the same thing when I was watching Encanto. I was like, oh, animated movie. I was like, I've never seen, like, cloth and clothing, like, flow and look so beautifully amazingly animated before. And I suppose it's nice and reassuring to know that. I did see some comments also, you know, about the same sort of thing, being like, I can't believe how good cloth look. It must have been what they focused on with this sort of movie. And I'm like, cool. Like, it's sort of thing, like, hold on, every Disney movie has a focus. So it's like, let's see, Disney movie special animation focus. Maybe animation technique focus? Animation techniques in Walt Disney's 3D animated film? It's not really what I wanted. Hold on, wait, what if I search Frozen, snow, Moana, water, braid, hair? Animation. Focus? I don't know. I can't even think what to search to actually probably find this. Frozen animation software. Moana. Hold on. Might be somewhere on Wikipedia if I just search water. Draw of water. I should really watch my island at some point. Also, it sounds like there's a present floating in the sky. I don't know if I missed it already. Yeah, anyway, but the cloth looks cool. We need to catch 3 more bugs, my word. What a pain. I'm almost tempted to just go shake some trees to get some wasps, but instead we are going to continue running about until we actually can find... Ooh, hello. We should definitely shoot you down because you might have a new recipe. Until we can find 3 bugs, and then we'll round off this episode. Or should I just round off this episode here? It's not really a big deal that we didn't get the bugs. We don't really need Nook Mile missions anymore. Yeah, I'm just going to round this off. Anyway, so basically animation, wow, crazy. I don't know what I'm going to title this episode, but that's for me to figure out. So, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been videodiary. Likes, comments, description, shares are greatly appreciated. Join videodiary in Discord, follow me on Twitter down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.